What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today I want to talk about where do we go from here? What does it look like? What is the strategy, the design, the expectation for the Jets after their 0-7 start, falling 13-6 to the Carolina Panthers? Like it says there on the bottom, big decisions are ahead for Aaron Glenn and the Jets. And like I usually say, if you want to become a Jets Latest insider, click on that join button. You can get access, be an insider, exclusive content, all sorts of badges and other perks as we slog through this 2025 season for the green and white. But here's where I want to start. Some of this has been by design. Aaron Glenn was not shy about it. He was telling you in the offseason what the standard was, what the vision was, how they wanted to win games, right? They wanted to play clean football. They wanted to have a good defense. They wanted to be able to punch you in the mouth, be physical, run the ball, and then be efficient in the passing game. None of that has changed, and that is a model that can work. The only problem is, especially over the last couple of weeks, our offense has been blunt, guts, trash, and can't even make a bare minimum amount of plays to stay in games, right? We need to be able to stay in games, have these tight games, and play clean football. I've been talking about staying on schedule. Look, the Jets are 18.4 points a game. That's 27th in the NFL, but only 13 points per game in the last 3 games and no touchdowns in the last 2. No matter how clean you play, no matter how good defense or special teams you have, that's not going to matter. Look what Aaron Glenn said. He goes, we have to be able to pull out these low-scoring games. The thing is, our guys are fighting. There's no quitting any of our guys, so I give them credit. But again, we have to go back to work next week. And remember, the Jets are 0-7. 5 of their losses have been decided by 7 points or less. And at -9, they have the worst turnover margin in the NFL. So Glenn knew they were going to be in close games, okay? The turnovers don't help. The mental focus with the pre-snap penalties don't help. Even in that loss, right? We had a pre-snap penalty in the first half when we actually converted with Reynolds on a third down to go to like the 8-yard line. And then instead we get backed up, try third down over again. We don't make it, and it's a field goal instead of what could have been a touchdown with first and goal at the 7. So I think that's part of why I think we may be on the precipice of a quarterback change, because Tyrod Taylor may be able to make just enough plays to mess around and win some games. That's why there's the focus on the turnovers and the penalties. Glenn expects this team to be in close games because they're predicated on running the ball and playing defense. And that's quite frankly why I have been so focused on things like the field position with McNamara, on things like the turnover margin in these games, in things like the what special teams have been able to do, even with Kine as a return man whenever he is healthy, right? So, that is the philosophy, and that is a model that can work, but we just got to do a little bit more. And I do think we may be on the verge of a quarterback change, moving to Tyrod Taylor. And part of that is because we haven't started well in games, and we haven't been able to finish drives. Check this out. Okay, the Jets offense has scored just 1 touchdown in the first 3 quarters of a game in the last 6 games, okay? A lot of the scores that they've had have been garbage time scores, all right? The Jets' 6.1 points per game in the first half is dead last in the NFL. Tyrod Taylor was asked about this. He says, each game has its own mishaps. Overall, we're just not finishing well. We started some games well, but ultimately we haven't finished. We have yet to put that together as an offense. Got to look at ourselves in the mirror and get better moving forward. That's what you would expect a veteran to say. I do disagree with Tyrod. No, we haven't started games well. 6.1 points a game in the first half. Worst in the NFL. What he's talking about, I think, is in finishing, and that's happening too. I mean, we are not getting into the red zone and finishing drives. We only have 2 red zone scoring attempts per game. 31st, or also known as second worst in the NFL. Only 1.1 red zone scores per game. 3rd worst in the NFL. When you look at the touchdowns we do have, they're not because of sustained drives. Our drives stall, and we bring out Nick Folk. Our drives stall because of penalties, like I just mentioned, against Carolina, where the pre-snap penalty gave up a conversion inside the 10-yard line for a goal-to-go situation. Our drives stall because of fumbles inside the red zone. The Breece Hall fumble in the red zone. The Braylon Allen fumble in the red zone, right? Penalties kill drives. And then I went back and looked. Some of our touchdowns have been on, actually deep shot plays. Garrett Wilson, 33-yard touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 23-yard touchdown. The Will McDonald block field goal for a touchdown. The Justin Fields 40-plus yard scramble, right? So we are not sustaining drives, and that is another thing that maybe we are on the precipice of a quarterback change because Justin Fields has not been able to process and string plays together to keep drives going, whereas maybe Tyrod Taylor would be able to do. The other thing I want to say here, and I know, quite frankly, I get it in the comments all the time that the Jets suck, same old Jets. I talk about how I'm a long-term Jets fan and I've seen this happen for a while, right? And then I get in the comments that, well, I've been a fan since the 60s and I just need to see something. Let me tell you something. This was never, and I'm borrowing some terms from Aaron Glenn again, this was never going to be instant coffee, right? This is a rebuild, to be sure, okay? We have the second youngest roster in the NFL. We had the most roster turnaround in the NFL last year. I still believe in the kind of culture and the approach in what Aaron Glenn is doing. Now, not throwing the Hail Mary the last couple of weeks, yes, I think that is a mistake. He says he didn't want to compound mistakes. Okay, fine. I still believe in Aaron Glenn. I still believe in Darren Moji. And let me tell you something. Darren Moji has actually, in my opinion, made some good moves even since the beginning of training camp. You know, we've traded for Harrison Phillips. We traded for Jawan Briggs, which I thought was good. We traded for Jarvis Brownlee. And what I say here is that continues to be how we are going to reshape this roster. This is going to take time. Anybody that thought this was going to happen overnight is kidding themselves. Okay, anybody that thought that all of a sudden, poof, we were going to go 12-5 is kidding themselves, okay? I have said it here on Jets Latest. At the end of the year, we need to know, is Aaron Glenn our guy with Darren Moji, and is Justin Fields our guy at quarterback? I still believe, yes, Aaron Glenn and Darren Moji are the leadership for this. Do I believe Justin Fields anymore? Probably not, okay? But that's at least answering the question. And I do want to remind people, if you're new to Jets Latest, this is something I have said many, many times. Dan Campbell, Jared Goff in Detroit, their first year, where Aaron Glenn was there, when Tanner Engstrand was there, their first year, they started 0-10-1. They finished 3-13-1. And look at what happened 2-3 years later, right? They started coming up. Then they won divisions, went to an NFC championship game, are viewed as a legitimate Super Bowl contender within 3, 4, 5 years. That is the road that I am talking about. This is going to take 4 years, not 4 weeks. I know some Jets fans don't want to hear that, but that progress can still happen, okay? And maybe answering the Fields question is what we need, right? And looking forward with the trade deadline on the horizon. I know I've seen a lot of stuff out there. No, I don't think they're going to trade Garrett Wilson. Quite frankly, who wants to take on that new contract? No, I don't think they're going to trade Jermaine Johnson, right? Because he is a stud young edge rusher that we are going to need in this building. I do now believe that Breece Hall is a viable option because I don't think he's going to be on the roster next year either. I think this is going to be the Braylon Allen show moving forward. And I think Darren Moji is starting to think. I think Aaron Glenn, you heard me say yesterday, he's got to have some conversations with himself. They've got to reset the deck a little bit. And if they can get some assets, I think that is, quite frankly, possible as we look forward. And listen, I think we had a decent draft. Right? I like what I got in Mason Taylor. I like what I got in Malachi Moore. I like what I got in Membu. I like what I got potentially in AZ Thomas, right? We see Kiko Mayuga now starting to play. So I think we have to give this regime some time. And I remind you of the Dan Campbell Detroit Lions analogy. Check out this tweet here on the bottom. It goes, Jets fans, does this sound like something you said lately? Look at the team. Look at the date. At about this time in 2022, there's a tweet out there. The Detroit Lions are the worst team in the NFL, and it's not even close. But this is what you get when you get rookie GMs and rookie head coaches. We have a rookie GM. We have a rookie head coach. I am telling you, if we give it time, or we still need to give it time, Detroit has rebuild. I think this is the path for the Jets to rebuild. I know it's not what people want to hear. I know it doesn't sound great when we're sitting at 0-7 and look like the laughing stock. But honestly, the Detroit Lions, there was no bigger laughing stock in the NFL for decades than the Detroit Lions. Went winless seasons, right? Was literally a joke and a punchline. And now they are a true contender. I think that's what we have to continue to think about as the model, and think about the young roster, getting the right people in the building, and it may not be Justin Fields. It may see what we can get for other players like a Breece Hall, not for a Jermaine Johnson, not for a Garrett Wilson, not for an AVT, in my opinion, all right? But that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. We will see this week as we go on to Cincinnati what the Jets decide to do at the quarterback position. If they got to stick with Justin Fields, if they make the move to Tyrod Taylor, I will be here to talk about it for sure. Let's see what some of you guys, Jets Latest kind of regulars, have to say. And I think it's interesting how a lot of you are now starting to talk about the future. Furniture Guy 6125 says, would have been nice if we had Jackson Dart. Yeah, I guess. But I'm still happy that they're building from the inside out with their draft. I am okay with that draft because, to be quite honest, I don't think this team is a rookie quarterback away. I want to believe in a slower process. Maybe they get a rookie quarterback next year. We'll talk about that. Old Dave 1000, a true Jets Latest regular, says, I feel that there's still a different energy permeating the team, and it's for the better. Reports say Glenn is losing the locker room, but I couldn't disagree more. He says things will start making sense and flowing through the next few weeks. I think next few weeks, maybe it will start looking better. But I think this is a few years kind of thing, old Dave. And I do think we're going to see what these decisions are. And this idea of losing the locker room, I think that's part of the reason why they may make the move to Tyrod Taylor. These tight kind of games, maybe a veteran can make just enough plays to keep us in these games and maybe actually win a couple, which could be good for the locker room and for the team. And then at Ron P50 22 says 0-17 and draft Fernando Mendoza. Thank you. By the way, for those of you who do not know, Fernando Mendoza is the quarterback of the Indiana Hoosiers and is being thought of as one of the top quarterbacks to come out of the draft, along with Guy Moore from Oregon, along with Lenora Sellers from South Carolina, along with Simpson out of Alabama, right? This is actually viewed as a quarterback-heavy draft coming up. So that's another reason why it is so important to answer the Justin Fields question, which I think has come back, unfortunately, in the negative for him, but not unfortunately necessarily for what is a long road rebuild. So we shall see. Thank you to everybody for sticking with me here. We're continuing to build the Jets Latest channel. I know it's an 0-17, but listen, if you're a real deal Jets fan, we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about what this looks like. I'm telling you right now, I still believe in Glenn and Muji, and I think that this is a process with a young roster to figure out who belongs in this building for what I hope is still brighter days ahead. And remember, if you want to hear more from me, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM. Hopefully your fantasy team is doing better than 0-7, but regardless, I'm over here to help you win your leagues and win that cash. And FTN Fantasy is a great website to do so. So many great data points, so many rankings, content, all that stuff, and not only fantasy, but sports betting as well. We'll continue this week to see what happens. Like I said, big decisions ahead for the Jets to see what direction they take this with Fields and what it looks like to hopefully start to build a little bit of good feeling momentum as we get through this 2025 season. I'll be here all week to talk about it, but for now, for this episode of Jets Latest, we out of here. Peace.